Okay, today is Friday, July 14th, 2017, and we are interviewing Deanne Nighsonger in Springfield, Illinois. Miss Nighsonger is 51 years old, having been born on February 9th, 1966. My name is Joanne Jennings, and I'll be your interviewer today. Our court reporter is Michelle Marvin. Okay, please state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in.
I 182nd and 183rd Air Wing. I was engaged in Iraqi freedom and Afghanistan.
In Air Wing, is that Air National Guard?
Air National Guard,
Alright.
yes.
Where were you born?
Rockford, Illinois.
Okay. Could you tell me a little bit about your family growing up, your parents, and any siblings you had? And were any of them in the military?
No, my family's on my mom's side started in the Civil War, and my cousin died from injuries after invasion of Panama, so he and I enlisted about the same time. My dad wasn't able to serve due to his feet and eyesight, but we've always supported. And out of our hometown of 650 people, there was 6 of us in the 183rd Air Wing down in Springfield, Illinois. And I do have 2 siblings. They did not serve, but my daughter did enlist and did 5 years at the 182nd Air Wing.
Okay. What dates did you serve?
I did 21 years. I started in 1986 in September and retired in 2007.
And what were you doing before you entered service?
College. Broke.
And you enlisted?
Yes.
Okay.
So I could go to college and serve with the Air Guard. And
so were you doing that at the same time? I mean, is that how that?
It's supposed to work that way. I never did get my degree.
Okay.
Instead, I started with the flood duties and stateside, volunteering for different missions. And
so can you tell me a little bit about the early days, like the training and what did that entail?
I was the first female to volunteer into combat arms. It had just opened up for women. So,
Do you remember what year that was?
I went right before Thanksgiving in 1986. My grandparents visited me in Texas. It was straight green outfits before camouflage. And I started tech school in February, so I turned 21 while I was down at basic training. EOD and the dog handlers who were also down there bought me 21 beers to celebrate.
EOD is?
Explosive Ordnance Disposal. They were all in our same training area.
And where were you in Texas?
In Lackland.
Okay.
For basic training and tech school.
Okay.
And we had one section for women. I was the only one there by choice. Everybody else was active duty, and that was not their career choice. But I've always loved weapons. My grandfather started the NRA in Ogle County. My mom was a volunteer female police officer. So it was just an easy choice. And I excelled. I loved it. And when I arrived in Springfield, you know, everybody kept looking at me, wow, we really have a girl. And it was before any of the trainings on how to deal with women. They really didn't know what to do with me.
How were you treated? Would you say?
Spit wads thrown down my shirt frequently. Drinking gal, you know, she's got to go to every bar with us. You can't associate with other squadrons. You are ours. It was before sexual harassment, anything. So, I just kind of go with the flow and tried to be everybody's friend. And, lots of swats on the butt and other places, and, and they thought it was appropriate. But overall, it was a positive experience. I was glad when my daughter went in, things had changed, that she would not be subjected to the things I was.
And basic training, when you were in Texas, the physical part of it, how was that difficult for you, or was
Cake. As the first female through, I love the obstacle course, loved anything about it, no issues with running.
Were you in good physical condition before you went down there?
I was fit, but I wasn't a person that ran around the block, or I just like staying fit. I still lift, and due to nose surgeries, I can't run, but I walk a lot.
What rank did you achieve?
Staff Sergeant E5.
Staff Sergeant E5.
I was that for, I think, 12 years of my career.
For 12 years? Okay.
It was very hard to get promoted.
Okay, so you made it through basic, and then
Came in as an E3.
An E3, and you were in Springfield, Illinois, is that right? Okay, and then
Transferred to Peoria.
okay, and then
Lived in Peoria. It seemed like the smart decision, closer to home.
What was your first assignment, mission, whatever?
First one was 1993 with getting activated for basically the whole summer for the Mississippi flood. They flew us out of Springfield or Peoria in our helicopters based on the Army side. We landed in East St. Louis. We were at Stadium Jackie Joyce Kerner's, I believe, where she built her track. And the governor came and thanked us for deploying and to help out. And then we mobilized into vehicles down to Anna Jonesboro and Murfreesboro and stayed. The majority of the people sandbagged, helped clean up the vehicles, helped clean up the towns, monitored who went in and out via boat in the beginning, vehicle later on. Stayed in the schools until we ended up in the state mental hospital because that was the only place to house us. So,
were there patients there?
Oh yes, yes. I mean, it was interesting living there. They gave us some housing that wasn't occupied, and
what were your duties there?
I basically watched the vehicles. I was assigned to security forces because my AFC was being absorbed into security forces, so they thought it was good training for me.
And you said you were down there for summer?
The whole summer, yes.
Okay.
I think about 5.5 months.
Ooh, okay. And then after that?
My next big deployment, besides many deployments, we went into Panama for a while, was we were activated for Afghanistan. I left on my daughter's 2nd birthday, which wasn't easy. And that was my younger daughter, and my older one was 7.
When was that? What date?
September 6th, 2002.
Okay.
And so one of the highlights for them was they did come and film us for Christmas wishes. So we were on the
news
TV.
Station did, your family?
Mm-hmm.
The news station? Who?
I was in Uzbekistan. They were at home.
But you said they came to interview you for Christmas. Who's they?
For the TVs, where you see the messages from the soldiers overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of cool. I came back in January of the next year, and they were still showing us on TV. So I got to see myself waving from Uzbekistan. But, and it was an amazing country. We don't realize how much history there are in Afghanistan and those old silk trading routes. And even though they're a sub-Russian, sub-Soviet Union break-off, but how much history there is, but how not advanced they are. No running water, no, like if they have a toilet, they'll fill it from, take water from a container and put it in to make the toilet flush. They'll ladle water over your hands to wash your hands if you're out in the public. They haul water up in their concrete apartments. They were all concrete. When we got there, it was 110 plus. We had laid blacktop and it was melting. It stuck to our tires. It was right before 9/11, so we were the highest threat con possible, anticipating another attack. And you know, wearing the gear and all the heat, it was quite the physical shock. And we averaged usually 4 days on, 1 day off. We were, I think, the third unit for security forces deploy into the base, and just been opened for the Afghanistan war. And the locals were very well received. It was all men, so they were very excited to see females for the security. So, you know, if I got on a checkpoint where they were coming in to access our base, we would have to search. And I'd get out of the Humvee and they'd get out of the vehicles, and my partner would have 4 or 5, and I'd have 30 or 40 lined up just smiling at me.
And who were they? They were just
the locals.
The townspeople.
Yes. They were coming on to work. So they were very excited, or the local military. They had MiGs on their base, but they didn't have any way to tell if the landing gears were down, so they would have people up with binoculars telling them whether to land. The electronics, they're nowhere near where our capabilities are with our equipment and our C-130s that we took. And they had the fuel vehicles had the old cranks. I don't know if you remember from, you know, where they would literally crank them to start up the motors and start up the vehicles. And they would take the hoses to fuel the planes and dump them off to the side of the plane, where we call it a spill, and quickly mop it up. They let the sand absorb it. When it runs clear, then they plug it into the plane. You know, the contamination that they think is acceptable. Yeah.
No EPA there, huh?
No, and they stored a nerve agent. There was a bunker blown open from some type of bomb, you know, where it was just peeled right open. And it was all the, you know, where you fly over, you can't hardly see the bunkers. They blend right into the desert, except for the ones that were exploded. And they did seal a few for nerve agent, as we'd sit there and the noses would dribble the hotter it got. And that's what they came in and tested and said, oh, nerve agent must have been stored in here. And I know the first team that came in, the first 13-man team to open the base, 12 of them went home with swollen ball syndrome. So it was very...
Do you know what chemical it was? Did they ever determine?
No, and I know fuels had more of a write-up on contamination than we ever got in our folders. Our folders were very slim with what we were exposed to. We tried to do a baseball diamond and ran a chain link fence and blew up a bomb. And yeah, I have signs at home, you know, hazardous past this point, you know, no. The chemical cesspools outside the base, they build the berms and just dump all the liquids in. And when they emptied the porta potties, those went straight out in the cotton fields. They were.
And when you say they, when they emptied,
Yes,
the locals?
we had the
again?
locals,
Mhm.
yes. Yes, so they were very excited. They wore flip-flops 24/7, no matter what the weather, 110 or below zero. And they were always, like I said, very courteous, very happy to have us there. And I know the base was closed after we left due to suicide bombs in the country because they supported us. And that was sad
Mhm.
because it was a great support. A lot of the American troops that were in Afghanistan, that was the R&R base, is where we were at. So we were the support. So we did fly in and have missions. I went into Kandahar, and so.
Did you ever experience any, like you said, suicide bombers or any danger or get near your
No,
base or anything? No.
not at that location. We lost a couple civilian contractors due to heart attacks and such, but
Mhm.
in terms of customs and everything else, everybody was thrilled to absolutely have us there. And I know it was other people that came in country that did the suicide bombs. So.
And did you say you were on 4 days and off one day?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do in your downtime there? Your day off?
They had brought in pool tables. They had a movie set up, physical therapy. A lot of us had lawn chairs mailed to us so we could sit out. And Army was running every single day. So, they kind of teased us and called us the chair force because we'd slap out our chairs and wave at them as they went by. Robin Williams visited us, and he was fabulous, and he ran around screaming, "Good morning, Uzbekistan," and just, he was an absolute joy.
Did he put on a show or did he just visit with y'all?
I have multiple pictures at home with him hugging me because I was told he didn't like to be touched, so here I am stiff and he's just hugging away, and whether I was on post or off duty. So he was fascinated by it all. I think he was there 2 or 3 days. So, and like I said, he just made the whole camp come alive. And it was around between, I think it was near Christmas when he came.
That's nice.
It was.
Did you ever venture off base? Did you
Yes.
go? Could you tell me about that?
Yes. We set up a couple off base excursions on our day off. We took one of our interpreters with, who was a local Uzbek. Like I said, the country didn't have running water. Everything was open air markets. So everything was sold in bulk. If you wanted beef, you went to the store that had the beef head sitting outside. The cattle were tied on leashes and fed because there wasn't any grass. It was all desert. Lots of rose bushes. I remember the rose bushes. The whole country was covered in them. And they planted them wherever they could, and so they hand us roses when they were blooming. We went into one of the main towns, and a wedding party saw us, and they thought it was good luck that we were there. There was Americans there, so they got on their cell phones and started calling. And the next thing we know, we're taking pictures with every wedding party. Probably 15 of them by the time the day got done, and they would just say, we're going to this site to go visit this site, and then the wedding parties would show up there, and they all wanted pictures with the Americans. And their tradition is to visit on their wedding day where their families are buried and where it's an honor because it's a tribute back to your family before you that you are here being married. And of course, that is where we were visiting, was these beautiful old sites. And so it just happened to correspond with where every wedding party was. But MTV was playing everywhere, and it was all Madonna. and they kept asking us if we knew Madonna and Cyndi Lauper, and and that was a lot of where their English came from. MTV, everywhere, every single public place had MTV blaring, and and to walk back into the 80s and go.
But this was during 2000.
Yes,
2000.
yes. So, and they try to sing it, and try to explain, okay, you're the size of one of our states, and we have 50 states. No, we don't know. Mm-hmm. And then a gentleman comes running up, and he's wearing, Caterpillar is big in Peoria, and we were coming out of Peoria. He goes, I go Peoria, I Caterpillar. And he had been to Illinois for training, and they brought in great big generators to help run the base. So he was so excited to see us and say, I've been there.
You had a generator from Caterpillar and
yes.
You recognized it.
Mm-hmm. So, to have somebody come and say, I'd be in Peoria. you my friend.
Did they ever bring you food or anything? Did you there?
I ate a lot of the local food because
Which was?
They would make handmade breads. A lot of the fields were cotton, but they did grow wheat. Lamb, lots and lots of lamb and beef, very little pork. Everything was very fresh. I didn't ever see vegetables really being grown. All those were canned or brought in from other areas. They let out school while we were there, so the kids could help pick cotton in the cotton fields, and then school went back in. And the schooling was kind of cool because the top 25% in the class, they got to go to college for free. The next 25%, and I think it was just men, they got to go to college or go into the military, but they had to pay for college. The bottom 50% of the class automatically went in 2 years into the military. And I thought that was such an interesting system to, get the top of the top, graduate, into college and into the workforce.
And it was only the males, you say? Not?
I think, there wasn't any women coming into the military. It was all men. So that's why I want to assume. Mm-hmm. But we really didn't have much contact with the ladies. We had a few children that begged when we went off. We got to see a lot of the royal palaces, where again they had no electricity, no running water.
In the palaces, they
did? Like the restroom, the guys went in and it was tile floor, and the women weren't there when they were for the women. And, and they'd go in a very dark area and it was just a hole. And we don't know how long that hole had been there, so we kind of waited for restaurants where, we could wash our hands and, have water dumped in the toilet so we could actually use a toilet. So instead of the antique buildings, shall we call them, that were there long before America was America.
Do you know what year they're from?
I don't remember. Most of the pamphlets weren't in English, and so they would try to tell us, and it was a little hard to understand. Mm-hmm. But I know it was from the silk trading route. So Christ era, where they're talking about training myrrh and and the incense, and so very, very neat country.
And
you can live like a millionaire there. $1 traded for 100 of their SUM. So
that's their currency.
SUM. Mm-hmm. And so we'd get 100 for $1. Mm-hmm. So when we're trading and, and they're like 67 soon, we're like 67 cents to us, where they were probably charging 3-4 times what they would normally charge. And we're happy as could be. We're paying less than $1 for something that would cost us a fortune.
Could you give me an example of something you bought?
They had handmade, we bought them for our beds, and they were stuffed with cotton, some type of cotton filling, and I still have 3 of them.
Like a blanket bedspread kind of thing?
And it was more of a mattress.
And it slept on top of it.
And one side was cotton, and the other side was this very soft fabric, and I still don't know what it's made out of. I only have them dry cleaned.
And how much did that cost?
$6. It cost me more to ship them back to the United States than it cost me to buy them. And, there wasn't any alcohol allowed, but they would bring us in the very expensive bottles that they'd have their alcohol in. And, we never did see alcohol. I won't say the Army didn't. They had their ways, but they'd bring in the old Soviet Union coins and sell them, and we'd buy them for $1. And so I came back with all sorts of old Soviet Union coins versus Uzbek. I did send back some Uzbek, but anything they could think to sell us, they were right there. And
so what all did you bring home, souvenir-wise?
Lots of coins, lots of money. We dropped in pamphlets into the different countries saying, that we are coming, please drop your arms. But they admit they were very badly interpreted. When they would try to read them, they would have a hard time. No understand, So, we brought back some pamphlets where they didn't break apart or, couldn't get them out the chutes of the C-130s. And I brought back where it interpreted their language into English, into, I think, Russian. They had the Cyrillic alphabet, which was the same for the Soviet Union and Uzbekistan. And I want to say French and German were the other languages. So they would print on the different, so you could try to interpret between the two. But it was very hard to pronounce anything they said. Niet was the easiest, no. Everything else was very difficult to try to learn their language, unfortunately.
How long were you there? You said, 2002?
About 4.5 months.
4.5 months. How did you keep in contact with family?
Mainly phone calls.
Phone calls. Were you able to Skype or anything like that? Or did you have cell phone service? Did you have a cell phone?
No. Just the phone 10.
Well, I guess that was... We had cell phones there before.
Yeah. On my second deployment, when I went to Turkey, we did have where we could do the little video conference, but I didn't have anything like that at my house, and our base did not have that. So other people at active duty bases could see their families, but we didn't have that capability. We do now at our base, but not then.
Did you make any friendships with the locals or anything? Have you kept in contact with them?
It was very difficult.
Difficult.
The phone numbers changed once they shut down the base. We would have loved some of the people to have gotten visas and been able to come to the United States, but I
lost track of all of them.
Never seen any of them since.
Back to when you said you were deployed on your daughter's birth. How many children do you have?
2.
2? And they were 2 and
7.
7 and 2. How was that for you, leaving them?
It was hard. I was in my first marriage at the time, and their dad was not the greatest attitude that I was leaving. but I knew I had enough friends in the community and support that they would look out for my girls and help try to keep him. You know,
On track.
he was very negative that I was leaving.
Mhm.
And, you know, so, and he wasn't, I did everything at home. So, you know, they went to school with a little unbrushed hair and mismatched clothes. And, but, you know, the teachers helped
Right.
clean them up. Bless their hearts. And I kept, you know, constantly corresponded with the school for my older daughter and sent them little gift packages and,
Did you receive stuff from her class? Or?
Letters.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of
Yeah.
letters that I shared around. Yes.
Did she realize where you were going or anything? And how was she?
You know, I kept having to say K2. I could not say Uzbekistan. And, you know, so she knew I was overseas. She knew I was, you know, but both of my missions, I wasn't able to say, I'm going to this country. So, until I got home.
Mm-hmm. But she handled it okay? I mean,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
both of them did. My youngest, I came back and she was very clingy.
Clingy. Did she remember you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, but then I redeployed for Iraq.
And how much, what was the time frame between?
About
then?
2 months, if that.
You were home 2 months and then, okay.
Redeployed, yes.
Iraq.
Part of me said, I know it's going to be easier on them if I take the deployment now than it will be later on. They're used to me being overseas.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you in Iraq?
We were actually in Jordan, which I was not allowed to say. We were supposed to be near the pyramids in Egypt, and they would not accept us. When we ended up in Turkey when the Iraq War kicked off, and then we ended up in Rhineland, Germany, waiting for a base to accept us, and then finally we ended up in Jordan. So almost, it seemed like a third of my mission was waiting for a place to be for the Iraq War.
And
So,
how long were you there? Waiting for a place and once you were placed?
We were probably in North Carolina for 4 weeks, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Germany, probably for another 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then into Jordan, probably 3 months. It wasn't as long.
And what was it like there in Jordan?
I had a very different group. So I wasn't treated as well as an equal.
The group you deployed with?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did not get along with a lot of the upper ranking officials. They believed because we're in a Muslim country, women can't go off the base. Women shouldn't walk alone. So I was followed to the bathroom. I was followed to the shower, even though it was on the base.
Mm-hmm.
I was constantly watched and monitored to make sure. But other women from other units weren't treated this way. And one of my best friends was marrying a Muslim, and one of my NCOs, actually, if you weren't in our religions in America, he thought you were, how do I say it? He was so racist against their religions that he treated her so horribly. And she was the nicest person.
Was she in the military? Or
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She was there with you?
Mm-hmm. From another unit.
Mm-hmm.
She was from the DC area. And watching them treat these other ladies so deplorably because she was marrying a Muslim, and numerous other ones took hits as well as I did. One younger lady from another unit actually slept with a gentleman, so they sent her back, didn't send him back. It was just a complete different atmosphere than Uzbekistan. I loved Uzbekistan.
Mm-hmm.
And then to end up at a place where I wasn't respected at all and had any opinion. And I was there over Easter. So I introduced them, the Jordanians, to jelly beans because it was
Yeah.
too hot for chocolate.
Right.
So they were fascinated by the jelly bean. And, and we would try to interact. In Jordan is where I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark was filmed, where they have the cutout stone. It's just supposed to be gorgeous. So of course we couldn't travel or anything, but
The whole group or just the women?
all the hotels and everything that supports the tourist areas were all shut down for the war. So we got all their chefs on our base to cook. And they were absolutely fascinating to talk to, and all the nationalities they met and all the people they've met and how they cooked. We had cakes that were the length of the table decorated for birthdays for the month. They'd carve fruit and ice sculptures and everything else just to have something to do while their jobs were on hold for the Iraq War. I mean, everything shut down in Jordan because of us and the Iraq War. So we were a form of a job. So they were very courteous and nice people. It was marvelous to talk to
But you
them.
said you were not allowed to travel off base?
And I was not supposed to talk to them either.
Just,
Mhm.
were the guys allowed to travel off base?
Yes, and did many trips. President visited Jordan, and they got to go work with the Secret Service. And they very much enjoyed themselves.
Do you think they were worried for your safety, or do you think they thought you were,
Because I wasn't one of the guys. We were distinctly treated different. And it was very hard. This is the first time in my life I had been faced with this.
I didn't know if they felt like it was, drew attention to them because you were a
Yeah.
female, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean,
Dangerous.
yeah, well, I mean, we were in a brief period in Saudi Arabia also on the way to Jordan, and they checked, and, the guys had more pornographic quote stuff than we did, any magazine, anything with a swimsuit, and it was gone. And, as girls, we didn't have anything like that. But, but we literally had no issues, but we weren't allowed to do much either. We could do the entry control points, and we could do the patrols, and that was about it. Where my other post, I was able to do suggestions and help improve the base, and so.
Was that your purpose over there too? Was it a support base? And what, when you say support base, what does that entail?
The planes were not allowed to fly over certain countries. So Jordan was a route they could take to do the air support to get supplies into Iraq. So I never was on any of the planes to fly any missions into Iraq like I was from Uzbekistan and to Afghanistan. And the weird part was we had one Navy guy on both landlocked countries, and he was there to help to support the Navy in contact with the Air Force for bringing in supplies and corresponding air attacks and strikes and rescues. And so it was a lot of fun having one CV in both landlocked countries. But yeah, I never had any issues with the Jordanians, but we did have a Palestinian town right outside our fence, and they did despise us. They hate everything about us, from the support of Israel and being forced from their country. So, the minute they said there was Americans on the base, they would throw rocks at the vehicles. They would do rocks through the chain link fence trying to hit. Our guys would be silly enough to try to throw candy bars and stuff over the chain link fence, and they're just throwing rocks at them as fast as they can through the chain link fence. And they did knock one guy off an ATV, and you had ringing in the ears for a few days.
Mhm.
But you know, it was disappointing. It was the first time I've ever seen hate that in Germany of America. Um, in Germany, they burned the American flag right in front of our gate numerous times, over and over and over again, in anti-American protests. And then in Jordan, it was the Palestinians. So.
And when were you in Germany?
On
You
the
said
way
for
there.
about 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, waiting for a base.
So when you were in Germany, where did you stay?
We were in tents, buildings.
Like a little
Yeah,
base camp?
Yeah.
And you didn't travel up there because of the danger?
No. Nope. So we supported the security forces there just to stay fresh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last thing I did before I retired was Katrina.
Katrina,
So
can you tell me a little bit about that?
that was overseas was easy to Katrina.
That was your most difficult of all the,
And I had deployed with Mississippi, I believe to Jordan. So when I got down there, there was my Mississippi Guard guys, you know, and I got along excellent with all the other bases that were part of our group.
Mhm.
It was only mine and the upper staff I had issues with. So as soon as I walk in, I had the same NCO, and they were so excited, hugging me, and said, "Please tell our NCO is not here." And in he walks, and they're like bringing in their commander. This is the SOB, right to his face, and how he treated their master sergeants and tech sergeants and belittled them and put them on post while his airmen and his favorite people had air-conditioned vehicles. And I was just ecstatic, you know, that I had somebody there saying, yeah, it was interesting. And so we were set up. We started northward and worked our way southward in Red Cross
where
areas.
did you start out at?
I've been trying to remember the name of the town ever since I sat down, and I can't. It'll come to me maybe eventually. The nerve agent did things to my recall, but the town had been struck by tornadoes in every direction from Katrina. So there's lots of damage with the trees into houses, and then lots of people had come into the town. So we were trying to help the Red Cross get the people the help they needed, plus clean up the Red Cross Center. People were just going in and out. There was anybody could walk in. So we did tags, and we tried to clean it up. There was lots of nursing home patients with no idea what medicines they needed. They were nonverbal. We had homeless. We had, it was just, and it was a horse arena. And they put down the floor over the horse poop, so you could still smell the horse poop. And then you walk out over clay into the bathrooms. The Red Cross took over the nice bathrooms for themselves and for the very ill. So they could only use porta potties outside through the clay. And it was they'd eat, at their place, they'd just set down the food. There was lots of vermin and flies and no fans, and it really wasn't air conditioned. TVs blared 24/7, tents, and then they would open up the back door and trucks would come in, and they just shovel the stuff out of the trucks into the back of the horse arenas, and everybody would go through it and then just leave what they wanted, and it was just so messy.
So that was like clothes and food and water?
Yeah, everything. Toys, food, clothes, whatever people would pack in a truck to send to help, It just wasn't organized. So we started an eating area, and we tried to get everybody to clean it up. We set a time so the TVs could go off, the lights could go off, so everybody could get some sleep. And then they told us it's time to close down this one. So then we moved to the next Red Cross shelter. There was all the people that had left because they didn't like how we ran it. Sitting there, and they immediately left. And that had all the pets that were in Mississippi. They were found. And so we walked a lot of the German shepherds and pretended they were guard dogs and drug sniffing dogs and helped clean up that shelter. And but there was no electricity. We went into Walmart fully armed, you know, as they were giving us stuff that was going bad because they could not refrigerate it. And I think it took two and a half weeks for electricity to come back on in that first town before we moved on to the next one. And the next one we came already had the electricity on. But again, the patients were there, and it just took forever for them to find some place to go because the hurricane came in so fast. They didn't have the medical records, you know, so you would just sit there and try to talk to somebody and find out, and they just couldn't even communicate. Can you write? You know, can you, you know, and they just sit there and stare at you and cry.
Was the like nursing homes? Were they nursing home patients? Was the staff there
And
too?
hospital patients. Yep. And it was Red Cross nurses. No, we had no.
But the nursing home staff, where did
No.
they go?
We don't know.
I don't know. Oh, wow.
You know, we assume we didn't get all of the patients because we didn't have a full nursing home worth. We only got a few. You know, it was such chaos getting these people out. So we did end up with some people from New Orleans, some people from Mississippi, some, you know, they were from everywhere. And, you know, as buses were pulling up, and this group was going to Tennessee, and this group was going to Chicago, and this group was, you know, and actually going to different towns to actually start a new life while the area was rebuilt. And, you know, and then we did get a trip where we got to drive down near the main interstate along Mississippi, and the boats were on the left side, land side of the interstate instead of being over on the ocean or the Gulf side. And there was just nothing standing where we went in. Now I know Gulfport area was better because we had concrete buildings and everything. Our bases were not devastated like these towns were. But I had been multiple times to Gulfport, and to see the destruction of the town was, you know, mind-blowing to me. And I came back and talked to my daughter's school, and I said, you know, it's like the Illinois River came up, but it's so much worse than just water coming up because it just had such force. It just knocked down every building. So I said, if we went up to the grade school and wiped out every house, that might give you a better understanding what these people are going through. And these kids, no, not my house, you know. And I said, but you had no idea whose house was going to be gone. And, you know, and we got to see a lot of better stories in the end, people finding their pets. And then a lot of the pets also got to go to no-kill shelters around the country that weren't claimed. And, you know, but I had a lot of hard feelings and good feelings for the Red Cross because they didn't want to clean. You know, the bathrooms were terrible. The showers were disgusting. They had the horse area, and they had areas set up for times for children, women, and men using the horse showers. Not showers. You know, so, you know, if you were there in the morning, your water was cold because the sun hadn't heated the water tank. So.
How long were you there serving for Katrina?
Oh, I wanted to say we ended up with 90 days by the time I got back.
Mhm.
But I was grateful for the golf court and the Air Force base down there that I had deployed with. That, you know, I was able to see them again, and I was able to work with them,
Mhm.
and they were able to go home to their families and let us take over
Are you still in contact with any of those folks?
a couple.
You mentioned earlier, did you say your smell from a nerve agent?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you experience that? The nerve agent?
Uzbekistan had the storage of the nerve agent in the different hangars before Russia pulled out. So we didn't know what was in what bunker when we set up. So I want to say it was the supply guys that were in the building with the nerve agent, which was right by our gate. And people would run by and they'd just start wiping their nose. And my nose just ran 24/7. And the hotter it got, the more my nose ran. And then they went in.
It wasn't like that before.
No. And they went in and tested and sealed the floors and put them right back in.
Sealed the floors.
Yep. And then put our guys right back in.
Okay.
The LRS. I want to say it was supply that was in there. So.
But you don't know what chemical it was that you were exposed to,
No.
and what effects has that caused for you now?
I have a hard time remembering names, places, times, dates. I never was the best, but now it's, you know, I can recall events, activities, but I can't tell you what day it happened on, what time it happened on.
Are you talking long-term or short-term?
Both.
Mhm.
Both. And so.
So memory.
Yeah, I, you know, literally talking about people, except for people that dramatically affected my life, I have to pull out my books and remember their names. Like I can remember Renee, who was marrying the Muslim, but I can't remember her last name unless I pull out my book. It's just, it kind of drives me nuts sometimes, but yeah, and I have control issues, you know, I had a few encounters that I did not ask for sexually. And so it affected me when I got to have a colonoscopy done wide awake and kind of set me back for a while. I had a hard time. And I'm like, oh, I understand this. You know, when soldiers come back and have issues and things set them
Like
back.
post-traumatic stress. Mhm.
So I really had a hard time with that. And, yeah, we would try to not remember.
Mhm. And then did you say it has affected your sense of smell?
Yes. The military never diagnosed what was wrong with me. They just kept giving me stuff for my sinuses, antibiotics. So I went civilian-wise while I was in the Guard and had 2 nose surgeries done. And now the VA is going to do my 3rd one. But my left side had collapsed and I had no air movement. So it was very, very hard to PT. And I was lucky enough to be in the time where you could walk to complete the PT.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they would have bounced me out because I couldn't run. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get the air supply in that I needed to run. So now I'm facing my 3rd nose surgery.
Do you have any sense of smell at all, or it's just diminished some?
It's diminished some, yes. And lots of sinus infections. So.
Any other?
From carrying the weight, I've had my neck fused 2, 3, and 4, which they would not connect service related, even though my neurologist said that's what it's caused from, is from carrying all the packs and the gear and the, yeah, it is what it is. My neck used to lock left to right, and I'd lose control of the opposite hand. And pain was off the charts. And so it was one of the best things I ever did, civilian-wise, to get it fused. And I have a couple spots in my back that are degenerative, and I have no feeling in my abdomen because of it. So they're working on that, trying to get my nerves reactivated.
That's a lot.
It is. Well, you think, guys are built bigger. We had to carry the same gear they did. There wasn't any difference in the weight of, all your equipment.
Right.
So just wish I'd been a little bit bigger and been able to support it better.
What did you do career-wise, like in between?
Well, in 1986, like I said, I was a combat arms instructor, and then that
Civilian-wise as well?
and civilian-wise, I ran festivals. I took baby pictures in the hospitals. I ran forklift service department for a long time. And when I came back after my tours, my baby pictures did not hold on to my job because it wasn't an Illinois company. It was based out of Missouri. So I got on with U of I Extension and did food and nutrition education because my military veterans gave me enough points to be hired over anybody else. And I did that for 10 years till I got laid off. And now I run 2 kitchens for Children's Home, which I worked with while I was at U of I Extension. So they already knew my background and my history, and it's a great fit, and I love the company. And then I still teach shotgun. I can't get away from it. So I've got 10 years to 18, and they come in for my shotgun courses, and they pay through 4-H. And my girls are my crack shots, much to the boys' dismay. They listen better.
You do? I know. I know. Do you have like your most memorable experiences? Anything you want to add on any of your trips? Or
No,
I mean, you've shared a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you or covered, or?
No, you've let me cover everything. I've had such a diverse,
Yes, you have.
more than most people, to do the state as well as overseas. And there are some amazing, amazing people and countries out there. People just need to travel more.
Did you receive any medals or citations or anything?
I did. I just can't remember them.
I don't know if it's in your paperwork.
No, because I filled it out today. I
Okay.
wish I had my information with me.
Okay.
No, I want to say meritorious service. I can't remember how many times. I know when I transferred from Springfield to Peoria, I took over all their paperwork for the weapons because they had a big inspection coming up and they were doing it wrong. So I spent months out at the base getting everybody ready because I'd just done it in Springfield. And they gave me an award for that from the other squadrons, not my squadron, for getting them through. And so, like I said, I love working. All my best friends were in other areas, other than security forces. I do admit it. I'm one of those that I love every part. I'm the big picture. Why stay isolated and solitary? There's so much to see and do.
Yeah, you did a lot. You saw a lot.
I did.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, just thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice. It's been an honor interviewing you.
It's been fun to tell my stories, and
I'm glad you did. Thank you.
I try not to be too negative.
No, you're good. Thank you for coming in. Is there, Michelle, anything you would want to ask her? Or?
I can't think of anything, but I'd like to thank you for your service as well.
Thank you. So it was fun being civilian and military, and it does work. You know, a lot of people ask, how do people fit?
Overall, it was a positive experience for you.
It was.
You and- yeah.
It was. It was a good time to leave since I couldn't get promoted, and I got to handpick where my daughter went
Good.
when she enlisted. I'm like, you're not going here, and you're not going here. These are the jobs you're picking from. So,
Well, if you don't have anything else to add, I believe that will conclude the interview.
well, thank you.
Thank you.